Welcome to the fabulous 413. I'm Khalees Smith.
And I'm Monte Belmonte. It's Live Music Friday, and coming up, music in studio with Wallace Field. We're playing a field in East Hampton next weekend. What is it?
Is.
Well, Wallace Field is. Okay, we'll find out because Chelsea Field is Wallace Field too. So we'll find out the differences between that name. Wallace Field is and/or Wallace Field are playing a field in East Hampton next weekend to support the Arcadia Wildlife Sanctuary.
We'll also talk to Jonah Keane, the sanctuary's director.
I found out they're both from Shelburne Falls, and they both in the green room realized that about themselves, which is really fun.
Bringing people together in their hometowns.
And we'll enter the wine Thunderdome and find an alternative to the most boring grape, Pinot Grigio.
Shout out to Christian out there. But first...
Oh, I sound like I'm on the radio.
This is fresh air.
I mean, I sound like I'm on the radio.
You're listening to Fresh Air, and I'm Terry Gross. Here in the studios at New England Public Media.
Don't we wish? This Saturday, Divine Theater at Gateway City Arts in Holyoke, Le Cirque du Collectif Artistique. So fancy, all these French words. I'm not exactly sure what they mean, except that it has to do with Meat for Tea, the Valley Review. And joining us is one of the founders of Meat for Tea, Elizabeth McDuffie, as well as husband and engineer, I think famous sound engineer from our area, who's worked with so many incredible musicians over the years, Mark Allen Miller, who are behind Meat for Tea. If people aren't familiar with what Meat for Tea is, Elizabeth, what is Meat for Tea?
Meat for Tea is an arts and literary journal, which is now midway through its 17th year. We've always had quarterly events to celebrate the release of each issue, so obviously it's a quarterly publication. And more recently, it's also a book press and a podcast.
The Meat for Tea cast.
Which I just checked, and we are sitting at number 1 in the top 100 performing arts indie podcasts on Good Pods.
Congratulations.
Thank you,
Number 1 with a
listeners.
bullet.
That pleases me.
The homonyms in the name, Meat for Tea, of course, like you would meet someone for tea, but we're talking meat like dead animals. And how did this publication get its start?
I was adjuncting at Holyoke Community College, and I was in the office with my colleague and friend, Alex Wagman. We were grading student papers, and she turned to me and said, "We should start a literary zine." And I said, okay. And that conversation happened in November, and we released the inaugural issue, theme of Gristle, in February of 2006, so just months after having that conversation.
That is a really fast turnaround.
Some people were calling us the Get It Done girls.
I love that.
It's a collaboration of, it ends up being nonfiction and fiction and poetry and art, some of which is displayed on the cover, some of which is inside. How did you decide to have like as broad coverage of literature and the arts as you do? Was that always the intent?
It always was. We always wanted it to represent multiple genres. I've always felt that people like some pictures with their words, no matter how old they are.
Yeah, you don't outgrow that.
No, it's wonderful.
There's an intellectual rigor underpinning Meat for Tea. Maybe after you get through that, a couple pictures would be refreshing.
Is there always a meat theme? Because the names you said, Gristle was the first issue, and then I know there's loaf and then casserole. So is that an ongoing theme of these quarterlies?
That's an excellent question. And no, actually, from our very first issue, we decided, it's Meat for Tea, and it was alternating years. So we alternate between meat and tea themes.
Aha.
So that's how it came to be that there was a chamomile or a hemp.
Is this a meat year or a tea year?
This is a meat year.
The year of the meat.
Because imagine casserole
odd
tea.
years.
What would casserole tea even be?
I don't know. And the new issue is called Casserole.
It is. That's a theme.
Tell us about what's featured in the new issue.
Oof, we just finished
Lots
the
of
layouts last
stuff.
night.
We just.
So it's fresh on your mind.
It's
meat.
fresh on my mind. No, there's 2 wonderful stories by Jeffrey Feingold, and we recently published his book, The Black Hole Pastrami and Other Stories.
Again, a meat reference. Not necessary.
Which just happened.
It just happened.
That was just
Unplanned.
some serendipitous occurrence. but he's been getting rave reviews on the books. I actually read one review in which his writing was compared to that of Isaac Bashevis' Singer, so not crappy praise.
Yeah, so we get the couple really great short stories from him, and a lot of poetry in this issue, too.
Lots of poetry. It's
Good
pretty poetry heavy. We've got poetry from regular contributors, Jane Yolen and her husband, Peter Tacey.
Small names that, Jane Lee Olin.
Yeah, right. A little-known author who's written like 400 literal books right now. Is
400 and counting.
Like 467
She
or
is
something
so
like that.
prolific. It is wild.
From Hatfield, Owl Moon, her famous book. And so
I
many
have
more.
run into more than one person who have never heard of her. They'll get a copy of Meat for Tea and they'll be, Jane Yolen, who's this? I'm like,
She's pretty good.
I'm just always aghast that someone with that literary celebrity has not gotten onto a person's radar. This is an ad for Jane Yolen.
Yeah, she has been invited on the show. She hasn't made it yet, but we'll have her on one of these times for sure.
Have her with her husband because they've been writing what they call back and forth poems.
Oh, cool.
And they have an amazing older folk COVID era love story, so they would be worth having on just for that and the poems too.
It is. It's a wonderful
You
story.
can hear that on the Meat for Tea cast. Actually.
Shameless plug.
Oh, hey, nice segue that. So your magazine has had a podcast, not for too long, maybe about
2019.
Yeah. Where did the decision to move into podcasting come from?
Well, we've been recording all of the Cirques, all the release parties,
Live recording.
the bands and the spoken
As
word
you know.
segments. Yes, we have somebody here who's been recording.
I've performed at one of these, it's true. Or
Full
two of
disclosure.
Several.
So we have all these recordings. I'm like, what are we going to do with them? And we batted around the idea of some sort of 2-CD, 3-CD anthology with live music interspersed with spoken word, but that became really impractical, and we kept getting more and more recordings. So we started talking about, maybe we could use them as part of a podcast, and that's actually kind of was the first season was more
It was
that.
organic.
It was more of the recordings from the Cirques, and then we started shifting more into conversations.
Well, actually, I sound like I'm about to mansplain.
Go for
You
it.
can actually. That's fine.
Well, actually.
The first episode of the Meat for Tea cast was a live recording, not of a Cirque, but of a special event we did at Corsello's Butcheria.
Yeah.
Cold cuts and cool cats.
More meats.
It was a match made in heaven.
The next Cirque is tomorrow, Saturday, September 9th at the Divine Theatre at Gateway City Arts in Holyoke. Le Cirque de Collectif Artistique with Meat for Tea, the Valley Review, which is a non-academic affiliated magazine that recognizes the work of artists and writers and musicians living here in Western Mass and beyond. And we're joined by the folks behind Meat for Tea, Elizabeth McDuffie and Mark Allen Miller.
The doors are at 7, and the cover is sliding scale.
Are we supposed to talk about?
There's
We can bleep that out. We can bleep out all the prices.
There you go.
Yes. We'll just say sliding scale and call it good.
There
that's good.
is art on exhibit from the very illustrious Zosia Kohansky, also known as Wishbone Zoe, who designed our glorious poster. Also art from Chrissy Howland, who you may have seen tending bar in the Divine Theatre. And there will be films by Wishbone Zoe, spoken word as always, and I never know who all is showing up to read until the night of. It would be nice, but I never do.
It's kind of a cattle call.
I love that film has always been, or has for a long time been a part of these Cirques.
Just about always.
What made you want to make local film a part of these celebrations for a literary magazine?
That's been since the very beginning, since the very first release party, the Cirque that Alex Wagman and I had. We included short films, and there's really not a very illustrious answer other than we like it.
Part of it, too, is that you can't put, at least not easily, film or music into a printed format. For a while, we did include a CD, a limited edition CD with the magazine.
And there was a CD-ROM in one issue which had films.
So, that was attempted, but it was impractical, and as the numbers of the issue went higher and higher. In a way, it's a way of extending, I think, the content of a arts and literary journal to be all
multimedia.
Yeah, all arts. And me being in the music world, it's like, yeah, let's do that. I wasn't part of the start of it, but I joined on kind of early.
You came on board. Well, we started dating in spring 2009, and you were only interested in meeting me because of Meet for Tea. Really, we'd gotten together to talk about
Wow.
Cirque.
Yeah, it wasn't
Literary
actually.
journal zine equals romance.
Yeah, it wasn't intended, but it worked out.
Lonely, start your own arts and literary journal.
I mean, the world could use more of that.
We already talked about Jane Yolen's new romance
I
and
know, but
surrounding
then-
all this, so hey, it could
And
work.
the poetry that comes of it. So I guess the lesson here for everyone is write more poetry, write more fiction, meet the people of your dreams.
And Mark, you mentioned that you'd come from a music background. You've worked with so many of our favorite local musicians, working on their production of their albums, and Stone Coyotes and Spouse and Dinosaur and all these other great acts. So that, if you've heard that name before, it may be from the music realm, not just the literary realm of Meet for Tea.
If you
Totally.
can read liner notes. Your streaming app probably doesn't have a lot of good liner notes these days.
That's true. Elizabeth McDuffie, one of the founders of Meet for Tea, I've always wondered this. I know that it's a fun play on words because it's spelled MEAT, as we've talked about ad nauseam
Right.
here, for tea.
Homonyms.
But is it a Bob Dylan reference? Because there is that Mighty Quinn song where he says, "Ain't my cup of meat."
You know it ain't my cup of meat.
And I've always wondered, is it a subtle Bob Dylan reference to call it
fun.
Meet for Tea in that way?
No.
Unintentionally.
Good.
Do
Now
you
I
want,
know.
You want the story? It's back in the days of MySpace.
Wow.
Oh, when Tom was your friend.
I'm so old.
Dinosaurs roamed the earth.
I miss Tom.
Yes, exactly. When dinosaurs roamed the earth, a fellow slid into my DMs and asked if I would want to meet for tea. And he spelled it that way. And of course, I was English professoring at the time, so no date for him.
Immediate disqualification.
Immediate. But I liked the way the words looked on the page, and I decided I was going to keep that. But initially, Meet for Tea was kind of an industrial electronica band. I was on synth and keys, and the bass player moved to Brooklyn and the drummer moved to Rhode Island, so no more Meet for Tea, the band. And that fateful day in November of 2006 when Alex said we should start a literary zine, I said, well, I've got a name.
What made you decide to move into being a publishing house? Now you release people's novels and people's chapbooks.
We got strong-armed.
I was
serious.
reluctantly coerced into it. I really didn't want to.
It's a whole set of logistics on top
A
of the
frequent
magazine.
early contributor, Michael Alves, just kept after me. He's like, I want you to publish my book. You should really do a book press. You need to do a book press. And I just consistently said, no, no, no. And what's the benefit for you? And you should just self-publish. And our distribution leg and arm are very short. And our publicity legs and arms are even shorter.
I'm now
So,
envisioning the Meet for Tea with tiny arms like a dinosaur.
It walks on teacup legs.
Yeah, right?
Meet for T-Rex.
That's a first.
I love it.
But anyway, so Michael just kept after me. And he's like, the benefit is it wouldn't be self-published. It would have the name of an imprint on it. And the press exists is really due to his tenacity. And that was in 2014. And now we have 8 or 9
or something like that.
Yeah.
I know the most recent is The Black Hole Pastrami and Other Stories. Jeffrey Feingold. And
There's
before
gonna
that
be-
was Funny Pages, Jerome Berglund, collection of Senru.
Are they all local authors too, or is this the Beyond?
No, they're from everywhere.
Yeah. What usually grabs you about pieces that end up in the magazine?
I look for a few things. I mean, my taste, there's definitely a sort of punk rock aesthetic, but also I just want to see some real intellectual agility. So really, really smart writing, but also maybe some self-reflexive irony.
There's a bit of a punk rock aesthetic, I think.
Yeah.
Seeing as it's a zine that grew out of the name of a band.
And it's not even, and it's outgrown really the descriptor zine anymore because it's perfect bound and averages 135 to 145-ish pages per issue. So it's truly,
Hefty.
yeah, it's Granta sized, if you're familiar with that esteemed literary publication.
Yours is also esteemed. You've won awards for this magazine.
Yeah, we won first place in a couple of New England book shows, and then we won best in category obviously being literary journals, putting us above Plowshares.
Elizabeth McDuffie and Mark Allen Miller from Meat for Tea, that's MEAT, hosting Le Cirque des Collectifs Artistiques tomorrow, Saturday, September 9th at the Divine Theater at Gateway City Arts in Holyoke at 7 p.m. Sliding scale with all sorts of multimedia extravaganza surrounding the most recent issue. And you can check out their podcast, the Meat for Tea cast, wherever podcasts are available. Thank you both so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us. It was a blast.
Yay! And right now you're listening to music from Opal, one of the artists performing for Meat for Tea's Cirque tomorrow night.
Later in the show, more music. It's Live Music Friday, and we'll listen to Chelsea Field from the band Wallace Field playing at the Arcadia Folk Festival in East Hampton next weekend. And we'll talk with Jonah Keane, director of the Arcadia Wildlife Sanctuary.
Then up next, we enter the Wine Thunderdome and taste Italian whites that are an alternative to Pinot Grigio.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on NEPM.
Because Pinot's gross.
I'm sorry I didn't provide any food today.
It's all right.
We haven't.
You don't have to give us
I know.
food.
No, we want to do it. It's fun.
It is fun.
Don't let me do it. I'll just
We don't want to rob them of their fun. We want to eat their food.
Next time we're going to challenge where I'm going to bring food and you just have to decide what the wine is on the fly.
That's a great idea.
Khalees made an amazing gazpacho that I've had for lunch 2 days in a row now.
That's a great Thunderdome. You bring in food, and Wes and I are like, oh my God, what do we do? And we just wing it.
I think that's a real fun game. Time once again to re-enter the Wine Thunderdome, where it all began. Here in the Wine Bunker, deep below State Street Fruit Store, Deli Wines and Spirits in Northampton.
This might be our least prepared Thunderdome segment yet, but we're still going to blow your doors off.
Okay.
Yeah. It's because of the heat.
But seriously, we wanted to drink red wine today, but we can't.
We
Yeah,
can't.
it's
It's
just too disgusting. Even here in the basement.
Put a nice chill on
I'm
it.
really hot. I want a Malbec.
No. Yeah. So what are we going to drink there?
Well-
Wine, son?
Americans, for some reason, can only keep one Italian white grape in their mind.
That Pinot Grigio?
That's Pinot Grigio.
We don't need another Pinot Grigio.
You know, 70s, maybe early 80s, it was Soave.
I thought he was early 90s. Oh, that's Rico Suave. Sorry.
Suave.
Gerardo?
Somebody out there is going to be real excited and do the dance in their car.
I actually thought that yesterday. I was like, oh, Monte's going to do the Rico Suave.
I love Rico Suave. That's a cool song.
It's a song.
It reminds me of a time.
Lots of things do.
Yeah, I timed where I wanted to pull my ears off my head. It's
Suave is not a grape, though, right? It's a style?
That's correct.
a region.
It is
Oh, it's a region,
yeah. Much like the rest of old world Europe, the way we name the wine is actually the region that it comes from. So
But not Pinot Grigio, the white grape that we think of. That is a grape. It's not a place or a style.
that's correct.
Yeah. Italy, always
Just to
screwing
keep
us
you
up.
on your toes.
Montepulciano is a grape and a place.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not from the place.
Here we have
So what gets grown in Suave then? What grapes get grown?
Organica.
Organic.
And
Battlestar Garganega.
Trebbiano, but Trebbiano di Suave, which is actually Verdicchio.
It is Verdicchio.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you
It's
keep all this
Verdicchio.
stuff straight?
It's Verdicchio. Don't ask me. Most people are like, oh, Pinot Grigio. And most Pinot Grigio is Blanc. Not the most exciting wine, but it's not really meant to be the most exciting one. It's meant to be just, aperitivo wine, light-bodied, pale, really, really acidic. Goes
Kinda
with
like
some
me.
foods. Like you, yes, like
Trying
you.
so
You're a little
hard
bit more. You're a little bit
Not
more
to say the real cruel thing.
You're a little bit more full-bodied than a lot of
Yeah. I'm not that pale in the summertime either.
So rather than do the stupid ABC, we were like, okay, anything but Pinot Grigio on a hot day. So that was sort of the premise behind this. And we have one from the north and one from the south.
So the first one we're going to try is from Aya de Colombi. It's a Falangina. This is one of the ancient grape varietals, probably first written about in the 3rd century BC, sort of the original cult Roman wine.
Wow.
And it still has a really great old world flavor to it.
So this wine that we're about to drink is 2,000 plus years old?
That's right. 2,300 years
Not
old.
this actual wine, though. What,
Are you sure?
I don't know. You tell me.
The name, so Falangina is named from, it's actually a Latin term for the stakes that they use to hold up the vines. And this soil, this is soil from Mount Vesuvius. This is what we're growing. This is all from just outside of Campania, just outside of Napoli.
Ooh, yeah.
Smell the acid right off the bat. That's so nice. And it's somehow a little cheesy.
How about a little bit more cheese with your wine?
I hate you, and I hate your stupid puns.
I got the cheesy, like a hard Parmesan cheesy.
Yeah.
So this word actually means barnyard. So yeah, so maybe that's why we're getting a little
Little funk.
A little funk. A little funk.
But like cheese funk, not like poop funk like you usually say barnyard is.
Yeah, that's Cab Franc.
Handpicked, identified in 100% stainless steel, and then sits in stainless steel for about 5 or 6 months.
So it's not 2,300 years old. I'm sorry. It's from 2021.
Does seem like another lifetime ago, though, at this
Oh my
point.
god, I love this wine so much. I've loved this wine since the day famous French Franc brought it in.
Oh, that's nice.
I haven't even sipped it yet. The nose is really nice and floral. There's a little bit of, once in a while, a peanut brittle-y thing that comes through, too.
It goes with that cheese thing. Like, you know how with hard cheeses you get crystals and they always taste a little nutty?
Yeah.
It's got that on the nose somehow.
So some Falanginas, depending on where they're grown, will also have a pine note through it.
It's changing in the glass.
You can almost smell the weight on this wine, too. Like, it actually has some real body to it.
But it's super light in color and straw-like. And
It's
color.
got this really beautiful, that acidity just spreads real
it has
soft.
a classic, like, you know, most white wines, when you taste them, the classic thing is like green apple and lemon.
This is like opposite day because Monte's still smelling his wine and I'm about to pour more.
And then I just took my first sip, and it really coats your mouth. It's like very unctuous.
I was waiting for that word to come up. Is that how you say it?
Unctuous.
Speaking of the ancient, this is also called Falangina Greco.
So Greek style of...
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the Greeks basically traveled all of the Mediterranean and planted grapes everywhere that they thought they might want to live one day. And they all became native grapes of whatever country they're in now, but really you
They
can...
pulled a Genghis Khan, but with grapes?
Mr. Genghis Khan! This is a dude who 700 years ago totally ravaged China.
I'm sorry, I want more.
Why are you sorry about that?
I'm never sorry about anything.
I think I've taken this one home before, and I really do like it.
I think I sold you that wine.
I wouldn't doubt it. What's it called again?
Aya de Colombi Falangina.
And if we were to estimate an approximate cost, if
14 oysters.
14 oysters
Or 14 Greeks.
on Dollar Oyster Night.
All right, let's get to Northern Italy. Let's do it.
Ciao.
Ciao.
We're gonna take a
Ciao,
Vespa
ciao, ciao, ciao,
to
ciao.
Northern Italy.
They talk about that woman who tapes herself doing Italian faux pas on TikTok and just does it to annoy her husband, who I think is from Tuscany.
Try the authentic Italian kitchen.
It doesn't say authentic, it just
No,
says
it's the
Italian,
Italian kitchen. I
No
brought.
idea what they serve at Olive Garden. He doesn't even know that Olive Garden.
Also because we don't have Olive Garden in Italy.
I love watching those videos. There's like, what a real Italian. I usually see a guy who's an Italian American.
Rigatoni.
It's rigatoni.
Okay.
Is it the Italian roommate one? How to piss off my Italian roommate? That is hysterical.
Turns out there must be a whole subculture of how to piss off
apparently
Italians.
Italians are easily annoyed.
Aren't we though?
But I mean that in the nicest possible way.
That's what happened. And that's how they got the mob.
Oh, with all due respect.
Oh no!
See, that's where the problem begins. You're about to say something that is not with all due respect.
Sarno will never come on our show now!
I hear that he really cares.
Dominic Sarno, a mayor who really cares.
With all due respect. Wine number 2.
Wine number 2 is the Tamalini Soave Classico.
Suave.
This smells like candy in comparison.
I got orange rind.
Yep.
Or like
That's classic
like
Suave.
the pith of citrus fruit.
It says with pulp.
You like it with pulp.
Not this much. I like the one that says some pulp. The was that for?
I'll write you up a list.
Now this says that it's 100% Garganega, but nothing is ever 100% anything in Italy.
It also smells
field
like
blend.
olives.
So that's also
Well, yeah, I can see that. That's kind of the
Suave
spicy
is
thing
off-
too.
yes.
It's also common in Italy in particular to not separate your grapes from your olive trees. So as you're wandering along there, there's an olive tree right there.
Oh,
so,
whoops.
yeah.
It's in the wine now. There you go. You're welcome.
This has like a fruit juicy feel to it. I bet you if you were like a New England IPA fan and you tried this Suave, this would be right up your alley. If you're
What a funny thing to say, but I don't disagree with you. Like it's
juicy.
Really?
Again, hand harvested like the first one, 5 to 6 months in stainless steel, and then it's bottled and then it sits for another year before they release it. So there's a little bit of time on this thing, and it's very common for people to actually lay Suaves down. Again, you have this creamy texture. I think it's probably on lees. Did I just say lay Suaves down?
Yeah, you did. And then you said on lees, like you sound so wine snobby right now.
know. Well,
Lay
that's what
Suaves down means that you just let them
just
sit
let them
on your
rest.
shelf,
Yeah,
laying
yeah.
down, and on lees means on the dead expended yeast.
But lees happens regardless of alcohol. Like you have beer on lees. Like
Right.
like Belgians often come with the lees in the glass.
Although this isn't so bready and yeasty. I don't know if it sits on its lees, but
No, there's a lot of acidity in this wine too. It just doesn't have that broad,
Racing.
unctuous
Unctuous.
body to it.
it's also oily. It's coating the inside of my mouth.
Oh, see, I thought the other one was oilier. Unctuousier, which is a word I just made up.
This has
We
a
had,
different texture.
We had a very lovely wine rep in here, and she said unctuous, and Yankee Sippa and I both glanced at each other amusingly.
We had a long-standing joke where it's some people do pronounce it unctuous, and that is probably also correct, but unctuous
is
the way that Merriam-Webster pronounces it.
Yes.
Insert Merriam-Webster pronouncer from the website here.
Unctuous.
Unctuous in wine is a good thing.
I think so.
In people,
I don't know that.
With all due respect.
Why did we trade this in for Pinot Grigio? Why did we do this?
We can blame Bola, the mass producer of Magnum wine.
I hope that people on the radio can hear my face right now.
I can hear it from over here.
Yeah.
I'm not even looking at you.
Plus, Pinot is a very recognizable part of a wine grape name.
I mean, it is descendant from Pinot Noir. Well, the whole point of this was this, and please come in and ask us. There are so many great wines at similar price points to Pinot Grigio from Italy, if you like that style.
I had a Gavi over the weekend that I thought was really great.
Gavi, amazing. Vermentino. I mean, is great, especially this time of year. We're still since it's going to be 80,000 degrees out for the. I guess winter's not happening. I don't know. Winter's never coming.
It's the hottest time in human history. So let's rock.
We already have a tropical storm with an L name.
Lee.
Ooh. Yeah.
It's resting on the lees.
Yes, it's resting on the Caribbean.
We had a hurricane hit California. They're not even supposed to be in that ocean.
Yeah.
I identify as a tsunami when I'm in the Pacific.
I believe it's typhoon.
Oh, right.
Oh my gosh, this wine is also delicious.
The orangey nature of this second, the Suave, it makes me want to put an orange rind in my mouth to stumble around my vineyard and die.
Where are you?
What is the name of the second wine, the Suave?
Tamalini, Suave Classico. So much like Chianti Classico, there's a very specific original area that it is Suave Classico, and then there's a broader area that they can still provide Suave.
All right, it's the Wine Thunderdome, State Street Fruit Store, Deli Wines and Spirits in the wine bunker, the epicenter of the Wine Thunderdome, where it was all created. 2 wines enter, 1 wine leaves.
My favorite part of this part of the show is that it's hard for me every time. I never come down here with a wine that I'm like, this wine's gonna suck, and I know I'm gonna tell everybody that this wine's so good.
Good problems to have.
Good problems to have.
From an intellectual standpoint, I really want to vote for the Falangina, but from a purely enjoyable point of view, I'm going to go with the Suave, the Tamalini Suave, personally.
Wine Sun goes with the Suave. Yankee Sippa.
I really love the Suave, but I'm going with the Falangina. There's something slightly more rustic about it.
It's an adventure, right?
Yeah.
The Falangina is an adventure.
The Falangina, and I love that it's so old. I love that it's hardly planted anywhere, and it's just this beautiful rustic, white wine that it's grown from Mount Vesuvius. I mean, come on.
1-1. Want me to go next, or you want to go next?
I'm in the middle of retasting, so you go next.
I love the Suave. I think on the last days of trying to get out to the beach, hot weather, sitting outside and drinking, that super orangey, refreshing citrus thing is going to be great. But I've purchased it before, and I will purchase it again. My vote is for the Falangina, and I'm going to have a little more right now.
It smells like flowers going back from the Suave.
God, Khalees takes forever.
I'm sorry. Oh man, Wes, I'm with you again. I really, really like them both. I kind of like the softness of the Suave just a little bit more.
It is called Suave, after all.
Suave.
Well, last time we flipped the coin that you always have in your pocket.
I do have a coin in my pocket.
Do you have the coin?
All right, heads, Falangina, tails, Suave.
I will not be upset if it's not us.
Heads it is!
Yes!
Falangina!
Is that heads?
Is that not heads?
Oh, no,
Oh,
wait.
that's tails.
Tails never fail.
Reading glasses it is! Suave wins. Oh, wow.
I'm not sad that Suave won.
And my eyes
Everybody
lose.
wins. Both of these are fantastic. If you need just a little bit more bracingness, get the Falangina. If you need a little more softness, get the Suave. They both work.
Perfect for Northampton. Everybody wins. Everyone gets a gold star.
In this case, it's deserved. They're both wonderful.
You don't need Pinot Grigio.
That's right.
Look.
You don't have to drink Pinot Grigio. If you like Pinot Grigio, that's awesome. But
There are good Pinot Grigio.
There are.
But
and
you
we
have to look.
Right, and we actually have a lot of Pinot Grigio, and we have some very, very good Pinot Grigios. But don't limit yourself to that, and don't feel overwhelmed. Ask one of us, and we'll show you some awesome Italian wines that are not Pinot Grigio.
We don't need another Pinot.
It's in the theme song. We don't need another Pinot Grigio or
have
Chardonnay
to
oak.
re-record that for
All
you
we want
every time.
is wines
I'm
beyond
just sad.
the Thunderdome.
Every time it plays, I'm just sad, but it's true.
Next weekend is the Arcadia Folk Festival at Arcadia Wildlife Sanctuary in East Hampton.
Up next, the Sanctuary director, Jonah Keane, and one of the musicians performing at the festival, Chelsea Field of Wallace Field.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on NEPM.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. I'm Khalees Smith.
And I'm Monte Belmonte. Next Sunday, September 17th in East Hampton, Signature Sounds and Mass Audubon present the 5th annual Arcadia Folk Festival.
Already at 5.
I know, right?
I remember the first one.
Me too.
This outdoor musical event brings the community together around music in the heart of the valley to celebrate and support the work at Arcadia Wildlife Sanctuary and to model a sustainable community event.
And joining us is Sanctuary Director Jonah Keane and Arcadia Folk Festival performer, both of whom are from Shelburne Falls, Massachusetts, but they didn't know this about each other until you were in the green room, right?
That is right.
Represent.
Originally. Neither of us are there currently, but originally.
I know, and there's a very dramatic story about what happened to your childhood home,
Yes.
Chelsea, that we'll hear about in a little bit. But you go under the moniker, musically, of Wallace Field, and we'll hear about why that is, too. But let's first hear a song.
Sure. This is the title track off my record, which came out earlier.
Well, then this tells the story of
Oh,
what happened, right?
That's maybe we should talk about that.
Why don't you tell us the story what happened to us?
Well, let me just get into that. So kind of how I started getting into music and performing publicly was a really transformative and tumultuous period where I was going through my first real adult heartbreak, and then 3 months later, I lost everything I owned in a house fire, so was really feeling like I was at ground zero and had to figure out what was I going to be rebuilding for my life. So that's how I started performing publicly. I had already been writing songs, and that's kind of the themes that this album centers around, is kind of just rising from those metaphorical and then literal ashes. So this is the title track from that album called All Costs. My driveway, never to be seen from again. That house would burn 3 months later, and I would not reach out. Of how we end still haunts me into silence. It frightens me most now that I can smell the fresh blood of a new love, protected at all costs. Protect me when I'm lost. I wonder how many more miles are left to go before it's over. A dying breath full of regret. Will you regret me too? The story of how we met still rushes me light of a new love, protected at all costs. Protect me when I'm lost. Protect me at all costs. Who will love me when I'm wrong?
Wallace Field performing next weekend at Arcadia Folk Festival alongside other fantastic acts like Valerie June and James McMurtry and Suitcase Junket, Taylor Ashton, Little Roots, the list goes on and on. Before we talk about the work of Arcadia with the executive director, your name is Chelsea Field, but your band's name is Wallace Field. We were talking about that at the beginning. Tell us the differentiation between those.
Outing it out. No. Yeah, so my real name is Chelsea. I chose Wallace Field as a stage name just to incorporate. Wallace is my mother's maiden name, so I just wanted to bring that half of my family into my performance alter ego. And yes, I've changed all my security passwords. You can't. That's not one of them.
What's your social security number? No.
We'll get to that later.
Should we call you Wallace Field? I apologize if you want.
I mean, that's okay. I mean, it's a little confusing. So.
Yeah.
I don't think so. It's not.
People choose stage names. We'll call you whatever you
I
want.
have my Wallace hat on right now.
There you go.
Okay. Well, I mean, my real name is Chris, and everybody calls me Monte. So go ahead, call me
Well,
whatever
I had no
you want.
idea.
We'll
This
make
is
it-
shocking
The
news to
veil
me.
just yes, removed.
We're not sure if this is your real name, but Jonah Keane.
It's my stage name and my real name both. I use them both. Yeah.
You are the director under Mass Audubon of Arcadia Wildlife Sanctuary, not to be confused with Acadia, the only official national park
just was there.
in New England, which Khalees just went to.
Yeah, in Maine. Very, very different.
This is
Very
a lot,
different. Still lovely,
yeah,
but very different.
a lot
Yes.
closer. So,
Yes.
what is the mission
Less seals.
of Arcadia in East Hampton?
So we're part of Mass Audubon, which is Mass Audubon's hub here in the Valley, and we are working to protect the nature of Massachusetts is our simply stated mission for both people and for wildlife.
And how big is Arcadia?
On the ground, Arcadia is pushing 800 acres, which is pretty impressive considering we're packed right in against downtown Northampton and East Hampton. We're right in the middle there.
Yeah.
And it's, it tells the story of what we do as an organization because it's 800 acres now. We've been around since 1944. Arcadia has been. And originally it was 140 acres. And so we keep protecting more and more land, protecting more important habitat, and restoring more habitats. That's a part of the Arcadia story.
I loved when I lived in East Hampton, like driving or walking down East Street and seeing like little pockets of it
Right.
too. Like it's not that it's all together either. Like there's some bits along walking paths, some bits along the bike path, and some bits beyond too. Like it covers a lot of extra ground that you wouldn't necessarily think of as being like centralized.
Right. Yeah, a lot of people come to the visitor center. They're like, "Oh, this is Arcadia." Then you're walking on the bike path far away. Like, "Oh, this is also
still
Arcadia."
Arcadia? When does it end?
Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah.
It reminds me of the No Mo May thing. It was like this for the pollinators, this too for the pollinators.
And so you teamed up with Signature Sounds, who for the longest time has been involved in other festivals like the Green River Festival and then the Back Porch Festival. And this is a fundraiser for Arcadia that, if you've never been there, it's beautiful. It's picturesque. You're like going through all these little fields that we're talking about, and then all of a sudden pops up either a big stage or a tiny little hidden away stage. So how did that relationship begin?
Yeah, so for our 75th anniversary of Arcadia, we wanted to do something special. So we got together with Signature Sounds. It kind of came together organically. We thought, let's do something new. Let's do a celebration. And we landed on this idea of a music fest at the sanctuary. We thought we'd do it once just as a celebration of 75 years. And then we realized after doing that first one that we really hit on something. Everyone was like, whoa, this was really cool. So we're like, let's keep doing this. And it's just been incredibly positive response from the community. So it's a fundraiser, yes, it helps support our work, but it's also a chance for us to celebrate together, to bring people together, and to demonstrate how to do such a thing, how to have a big community event and do it sustainably, reduce our impact on the planet while we come together and have a good time.
Yeah, I was just about to ask. Like, it's a big. not like a giant festival, but like enough people coming through where there might be issues of like people trampling things or not necessarily treating the arena that it's in with as much respect as they normally would just coming on a visit? How do you mitigate that for an event like this?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's the perfect size event, in my opinion. Perfect size. It's a really lovely size. But we do get 1,800 people or so that come through, and we focus them. That's the main way that we do that, is we focus them into this one little area around the visitor center that's already impacted, and so we do not. We don't bring them all over the sanctuary and send to sensitive habitat. And the thing that's amazing, like some festivals you'll see afterwards, and it's sort of like this wasteland of like bottles and stuff thrown around. We're a zero waste fest. After that same night, you could walk around Arcadia and not know that anything had happened there. It's amazing.
Leave nothing but footprints. Take nothing but memories.
That's right. Exactly.
The Arcadia Folk Festival
is help from a lot of brownies.
Yeah, that's true. Is happening next weekend in East Hampton, and coming up more with Jonah Keane, the director of the Arcadia Wildlife Sanctuary, and more music from one of the performers at the festival, Wallace Field.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on NEPM.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. I'm Monte Belmonte.
And I'm Khalees Smith.
And we are joined in the studio for Live Music Friday by Wallace Field and by the director of the Arcadia Wildlife Sanctuary, because next weekend there's the Arcadia Folk Festival. Wallace Field will be performing at the Folk Festival. Let's hear another song.
Sure. This song ends my record. It's called Breaking Promises. I told myself I never wait around for anyone. But here I am, breaking promises to myself again, self again. I can hide it better than you'll ever know. I can fight this, but I might be late to your show. Said I was gonna go, so my God, I'm gonna go. On days like this, I feel so alone, even though I'm not, no I'm not. Just pick up the phone, but it's a weight in my palms, and I'm stuck in thought, lost in rot. Why am I like this? I always ask, I'll never know. Try to fight it. You still love me when I don't. You don't say anything, you just hold me close. Maybe breaking promises was what I needed. Take it from me, my world keeps turning.
Wallace Field performing in a field at the Arcadia Folk Festival next weekend. Arcadia, East Hampton. the Arcadia Wildlife Sanctuary.
What animals do we see in this field while we're seeing all of this music? Bring on the birds.
Jonah Keane, director of the Arcadia Wildlife Sanctuary.
Bring on the burbs.
You know, no guarantees for wildlife, but it has every fest. We have bird watchers, of course, that are there, because it's Arcadia, and people keep a little tally. There's always birds flying overhead, so birds for sure will be seen. No
Special
guarantees.
birds, fancy birds.
Fancy birds. There's a good chance you'll see. It could be a bald eagle. There's bald eagles that are right there at Arcadia that nest there and fly overhead all the time. We have a red-tailed hawk that just lives at the visitor center. Basically, is always flying around. But the special birds at Arcadia that you will not see are really out in the meadows part of Arcadia. We manage that specifically for grassland birds that are a group of birds that are in decline. They need this habitat that we maintain for them. So birds like the bobolink, which is an incredible bird. People say it looks like it's wearing a backwards tuxedo. It's the way it's colored. and it flies every year all the way down to the middle of South America, 6,000 miles, and then back up here and then comes to our field Arcadia to nest. It's just really cool. I always think, oh, this is amazing. We're maintaining this field for this bird that's making this huge trip to come here and raise its young right here.
I thought penguins were the only birds with tuxedos, but now I know the bobolink has one.
Well, they wear them forward. Yeah.
All birds are fancy, Monte.
And there are herons that nest there too, right?
Yeah, so years ago we were known as the Great Blue Heron Rookery area there.
Yeah.
They've moved along actually partially because of the bald eagles that moved into their neighborhood.
Smart.
Yeah.
Not because of the folk music.
No, it did not affect.
Not the songbirds.
Exactly.
I remember my kids were little and they went to go see the nesting heron, and it was incredible for them to go see that. Yeah,
it was up to 59 pairs, 59 nests at one time.
Yeah.
It was pretty incredible. Wow. And then the eagles moved in, and those numbers sharply declined.
That's what happens whenever I hear the Eagles. I try to blow town too.
Desperado.
Yeah, I know, right? Jonah Keane.
We're just throwing punches. It's
Friday. We're feeling punchy. Jonah, this has been an effort to make this festival low impact on the environment, and there's been a lot of steps to bring it to that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, we really wanted to fit with our mission. So we said, it's a great time. It's amazing music and scenery, but we also want the whole event to fit with what we're trying to do. And so we wanted to show how can you come together and do it with a really low impact. So we looked at all the ways that an event has a big impact, and we tried to reduce them. So there's no generators. All the electricity at our festival is solar powered. We have all the solar we need there to power it. All of the waste that is created is compost primarily. So I put those are air quotes that nobody can see except for those of you here in the studio. Yeah. So the waste is actually compost. We have at the end of the day with 1,800 people there, we have a little half bag of actual trash that goes to a landfill. Most of it is compost. And we are working really hard to reduce our impact of food too. So we switched to 100% plant-based food that's served there. We're not trying to say that everyone needs to only eat plants exclusively for the rest of their lives, but we're saying, hey, look, you can eat a plant-based meal. It's delicious, and you can reduce your impact for this meal. So we're just trying to show folks what's possible.
Jonah Keane, the director of Arcadia Wildlife Sanctuary, Arcadia Folk Festival happening at the Sanctuary in East Hampton next week. Wallace Field, who are you most excited to play with?
That's what I was going to ask.
Oh my gosh, I'm just so excited to be part of this bill. I'm excited for Huna to kick off the main stage in the morning, and then it's just a dream to be sharing a bill with Valerie June, who is just a personal musical hero. So yeah, I'm just so excied for it all.
She's wonderful.
She
calls herself a musical fairy, and she's not wrong.
She is not wrong. She is wonderful. Yeah. And it's James McMurtry, Suitcase Junket, Taylor Ashton, so many more at Wallace Field next weekend at Arcadia in East Hampton. Thank you both so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Next week on the Fabulous 413, it'll be a Farmy Fiesta.
We'll tell you about Farm Stand, a coordinated day of giving towards the Farm Resiliency Fund that was set up by Governor Healy's office in the wake of the disastrous July floods.
Which hit Arcadia.
Indeed.
We'll talk to the folks administering those funds at the Community Foundation of Western Mass and at the United Way of Central Mass, and hopefully we'll talk to the governor herself.
Keep those fingers crossed, y'all. Plus an accessible tour of an outside art exhibit at an apple orchard in East Hampton and an artificial intelligence tour of a corn maze in Sunderland.
Special thanks to Spouse, Happy Valley Guitar Orchestra, Wishbone Zoe, Outro, Tina Turner, Gerardo, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, The Annoying Orange, TikTokers Carlo and Sarah, The Sopranos, The Godfather, The Sarno Campaign, and Wallace Field.
That's not an endorsement, y'all.
No, I just used a clip. I'm Monte Belmonte.
I'm Khalees Smith. We'll see you next week on the Fabulous 413.